Hi everybody, welcome back to From Small Things. My name is Sue and I'm a scrap quilter living in southeastern Pennsylvania. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm glad to have you here joining me. And if you're returning, I'm so glad to have you here too. And I really appreciate everybody's comments that they write, and I want to thank everybody who always gives me alternate solutions or alternate ways to do certain techniques that I talk about in my videos, because I think it's really important that we share information among ourselves. And so thank you so much. I do read all the comments and I really appreciate your feedback. Okay, so this week I did say that I was going to take maybe a little break and not work on as much. And so part of that's true. I did not start any hand quilting at all in the last week. And that's really unusual for me. I had finished up a quilt before. In the last video I shared that. And I did not start the next one yet with hand quilting. I really wanted to focus on getting some of my other projects moved on a little bit further ahead. And I did make some good progress on a lot of those things. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So stick with me and I'll show you what I got done. This is the first thing that I kind of pushed my way through on and finished this up. I had started this as a way to use up the green 2.5 inch squares that I have in my drawer. The pile was getting so big, so I started by making 4 patches with some of the whites that I also save and collect, and then I put 4 of those together to make 16 patches. And I had them not really long, maybe, I don't know, a month or so before I kind of settled on what I was going to do with them. And so as far as I'm concerned now, this is a finished top. And so I joined them together. I do have like a center part here that is then separated by some string blocks that are all neutrals. And this goes all the way around the center part here. And then I put 2 more rows of 16 patches around that. And then I ended it with another row of my string piecing of my neutrals. And then because this is string piecing here, and I do it on the diagonal, all of my outside edges here are on the bias. So when I finished this, I went around, let's see if you can see, I went around the whole outside edge with a big, like a basting stitch, like a stay stitch, to keep that stable until the next step. I'm not sure what the next step of this will be. I'm pretty sure this one will go as a charity quilt. So I had a lot of fun doing it, and almost all of these green squares really were true scraps, leftovers from other projects that had been sitting in my drawer. But when I got to the very outside part here, I did have to cut up some more greens just in order to finish it. And I wanted to do that just so that I could call this finished, because I have a lot going on right now, and it just kind of feels good to know that this is not still kind of hanging over my head waiting to be done. So sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I will just cut some more pieces just in order to be able to call it done. And these white string pieces here are something that I do as a form of scrap management, which is what this box is all about. Whenever I have some white strips left over, I sew them onto newspaper. And I start with 4.5-inch papers, and then when it's trimmed down, when it's in the quilt, it will finish at 4 inches. So that's what this whole box is here, and it has been really, really stuffed tightly before, so I'm happy that it found a home in this green quilt too. It gives me a little breathing room in here also. And I also, if you kind of look behind me here, the quilt that's hanging up on the door, this one also has that on the outside, my little white string pieces. This has just been such a good place for me to use scraps, and I really do use these pretty often. I also made really good progress on my cathedral windows. If you remember, I was making this for a very specific place in my house. The back of my house gets so frigid cold in the winter, and because I have an old house with no insulation, I made this to go in that spot to kind of help keep things maybe a little bit warmer. So it took me a lot of hours of, this is all hand sewn. Everything is hand sewn. So here we go. It's approximately 76 inches long, and it's all in blues, and I really like it. It's really nice and bright and cheerful, and I love blues and whites. So the only thing I have to do now is I want to put a hanging sleeve on the back of it. And I saved this piece from a sheet that I used for the back of a quilt. And this was the very top, the top edge. And so it's basically, if I just cut this one end off, it's already like set to make, for a hanger. So I think I might use this for the back and just put this on the top, and that'll be easy peasy. And the other thing I was thinking about with this too, I haven't decided 100% yet, but I'm leaning towards putting a binding on this. Has anybody ever done that before on a cathedral windows? I don't think I've ever seen one that has binding on, but for some reason, I think this would look really nice with, that like a dark edge to outline all of this. So I don't know how that'll go, but I think I'm going to try it and give it a try and see. Because there's just something, every time I look at this, I don't know, that thought just pops into my head every time that I work on this. And so there must be a reason. So I kind of think that's what I'm going to do. And I actually do right now have some dark blues that are leftovers from previous quilts that I've used bindings on. And so that'll be my first choice. I'll see if I can maybe use the leftovers for this. And so this part here is done. And I did count how many squares were in here, and now I forget, but it's somewhere around 342, 349? I'm not sure, but it's something like that. So I really like this one. And I was able to finish up another project that I had started before, and here it is. This is a Dresden pillow, and if you've seen the videos previously, I talked about how I acquired these Dresden plates from one of my friends, and these all belong to her grandmother, and she gave me boxes of, it's all applique work or all hand work, that she got from her grandmother, and one of them was Dresden Plates. And so my friend asked if she could just have a pillow made in remembrance of her grandmother. And so this is the pillow that I made, and because I'm not that good at sewing anything other than quilts. Quilts is all I know. So I don't do zippers. So for the backing, I did the envelope style, where you just kind of overlap to get the pillow form in. And I like that too. I mean, it's easy to get in and out, and then she can wash this if it needs it. So I was happy to cross this one off my list too. So, okay, so speaking of the Dresdens, that's what I have to talk about here. She had given me, there was a stack of 7 of them all together. So one is on the pillow, that left 6 left. And so I was thinking of making like a throw quilt for her also, using the other Dresdens. So I did. I have 1 Dresden left over. There are 5 in here, and then there's 1 left over that I'll keep this for myself and put it in my orphan blocks. But I'll show you what I did with this. Because there were 5, I put them in the 4 corners and 1 in the middle. And I put pinks in the center because I kind of thought it went with the era of the quilt. And then I needed something for the other spots. And so they're also Dresdens, but I had to make all of these. So I'll give you a quick peek here. So the smaller ones here are the ones that I made this week. And I made these from one of the other boxes. This was one of the boxes that she gave. And so I used these to make 4 of these Dresden plates. Now these Dresden plates here only required 16 blades around, where the bigger ones on here have 20 blades around. So, and first I had to go through the box and sort them out, because there are actually 2 different types in here. They're not the same size, and the top on this one is much more rounded than the tops on this one, so I had to sort them all out. But I'll talk about this in detail in just a second. I just want to show you the top. Now, because these blocks are smaller, I needed to do something to make them the same size as the bigger ones. So I looked into my vintage fabric box to see what I had enough of, and I found this really pretty darling blue print with some pink flowers in it, and I really like the way that this looks in this quilt. And then the back of it, I did cut away all of the backing fabrics for the back. So that's what the back of them looks like. And now I'll show you my the little problem that I had and how I fixed it. And it really isn't much of a problem, but it was still, decisions had to be made. So I'll explain that when we look at this box. Okay, so once I decided I was going to use some of the other Dresden plates that were given to me, I got them out, and these are all rounded tops, where the original ones I received were pointy tops, like this. So I was going to make these rounded, but I know for myself that if I try to freehand turn over 1/4 of an inch all along. I know that it's not going to lay as flat as I like, and I might even get some puckers in there when you're working with rounded edges. Now you can clip these edges too to help it lay flatter. But honestly, with the amount of handwork that I've been doing lately, I just didn't have it in me to fiddle. And, you know, I just knew how long that was going to take. And I knew the results were not going to be what I hoped for using that method. Now, the other thing you can do is you can take this on your sewing machine and sew about 1/4 of an inch from the edge here, and then turn it under, and just enough to hide where your sewing lines are, because that sort of gives you an edge to go by to turn that under. Again, I think I was lazy that day. Didn't want to do that either. So then I thought, I'll make a template, and which I did. I traced one of these and I made a template, and this is just a piece from packaging. So I did that, and then I sewed, machine sewed, just some white fabric on the back, because my sewing line is going to be smoother than my hand stitching line. This is my thinking as I went along. And it is. It's not perfect, but it's much better than if I just free-handed that. So then I thought, that's a lot of blades to do like that. So I did do a couple like that. And I only got as far as doing 3 with that on the back. And again, I was feeling lazy. I thought, I don't want to do that. So this is how I ended up with pointy blades instead of rounded ones. I will probably still use these somewhere in some project. But for this is what I did. Let me see, I'll get one that's easier to see. There's a lot of blues in the pile here. Let's see, I'll pick one that's easy to hear, this one. Okay, so I used the old trick when people make their blades. I folded this in half so that these edges line up. Just did a very rough finger crease, and then I laid my ruler on this bottom part here, where one of these lines, doesn't matter which line, just to get a straight edge. And then I moved the ruler all the way up to where this point is here, right there. And then I cut it off. That's it. Now that leaves me with this shape. And once I have this shape, I can take this to my sewing machine and turn it in half like that, and sew a straight line right across here. And then you get this. This is what it looks like then, a straight line right across. Then what I do is I took a scissors and I trimmed off on a diagonal here just some of the little bit of excess fabric there. And then when you turn this inside out, you take it over to the iron and then press it really good. And now you have a point. And that made me happy. Because it's like, I can do that, and I know this project will get done a lot faster if this is how I approach this project right now. So that's what I did. I turned all of these, and I used the ones that were a little bit larger and not as round, because the ones that are very round and shorter, I didn't have a very good amount of them, and I didn't have a very good variety of them. So these will stay in the box for another day. And I used as much of the really bright colored ones as I could in here. I was starting to run out of options because I was getting just a lot of blues. And I also tried to stay away from ones that read very, very, very light, like these. I did use one of these, and I probably shouldn't have, because it's on a white background and it just doesn't read as good. And then there were a couple too. I don't know what kind of fabric this is, but it's not going to play nicely. I did not use that. And this too, this to me looks like something from the 1970s. I don't know what this is, but that's not going in a quilt either. I don't know what that is. And then the browns I kept out too because I thought they were too dark for this quilt. So the rest of them are basically just different blues. So I might actually go ahead and make some more Dresden blocks and just keep them for maybe a future project. They can always go into orphan block quilts, and I will probably do this method for all of these because it was quick, it was easy, and it gave me the results that I wanted. So, and then it did not make the block that was the same size as this one. So I went into my vintage box for this fabric here because this was one that I had enough of, and I really like this fabric a lot. It's a little bit thin compared to today's quilting cottons. And whenever I work with like old vintage fabrics too, I just kind of wonder, how did they make such nice quilts back then? I think we're so spoiled today with the quality of the fabric that we have today. And I think we sometimes forget just how skilled some of these quilters were to be able to make quilts with such precision without using any of our new rulers and rotary cutters, all the new gadgets that we have. So that's kind of nice when you work with vintage fabrics too. It kind of keeps that connection to your past and makes you appreciate really the quality of the workmanship that they did. And what a labor of love they are. This was really fun. This isn't done yet. This is I just actually sewed these 9 pieces together just a few hours ago. I will probably finish it out with some more borders. I'm not sure yet, but I'm really thrilled to get this far on this quilt in a week. So the quilt that I have hanging behind me today on the door is only there because I don't have a new finish this week. So I just went into one of my piles of quilts and I dug out something that I thought looked summery and fresh. And I have a lot of blue and white quilts in my collection, and the pattern on this one is called Perkiomen Valley, which I've made before. I've made at least 3 of them in that pattern. This one is in blues and whites. So there's no reason really why that's on the door other than I thought it was a pretty one to have out today. And just one more little thing that I wanted to share with everybody before I go. Just like you, I watch a lot of videos about quilting online, and every once in a while I come across one that really catches my attention because they're doing their own thing and they're not kind of just doing whatever the popular thing is at the moment. So one channel that I've watched just a few episodes, maybe about 3 or 4 episodes, the channel is called String and Scissors, and the woman's name is Deborah, and I believe she's from Australia, and she's doing some work that really intrigues me a lot. She's using a lot of vintage hankies, laces, like dresser scarves that have beautiful embroidery on. She has She has a lot of different kinds of lace that she gets at one of her local thrift stores. And she's doing hers sort of like a quilt as you go. She starts off with a foundation that has some batting and backing, I believe. Most of what I've seen is just her like putting the things on the top of the quilt. And basically she just keeps layering different laces with each block. I seems like maybe has like a bit of embroidery on it, like from a dress or scarf or something similar. And then just a lot of different kinds of laces, and she's thinking about putting some buttons on too. But it's just fascinating to me to see how she pulls things together, and she doesn't overthink things. It's very intuitive and it seems very natural to her. So if you like that sort of thing, check her out, and maybe you'll like it. It's just eye candy, really, and it's just inspirational. So that'll do it for me for this week. So I hope you all stay busy in your sewing room too, and stay cool. We are about to get hit with a heat wave here where I live. So I don't know how much hand sewing I'm going to be doing in a heat wave. So, oh, one more quick little thing. Stay tuned for a bonus episode that is coming up. I have a special guest who's going to be joining me in my sewing room. That's it for now. I'll see you later. Bye.